It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back, your feel-good breakfast show, Expresso on S3, and I feel like we all got the memo dressed in black today. Well, we are talking relationships, and when it comes to what is a non-negotiable deal breaker in a relationship, cheating often comes in at the top of the list. Cheating can shake a relationship to its core and leave the partner who has been cheated on in an emotional turmoil, but also many couples have been able to work through the infidelity to build a solid foundation again. Now today we are asking the question, would you forgive your partner if they cheated on you? Well, we have clinical psychologist Asha Dullabh with us in studio to help us discuss this topic, and we're also taking your questions and comments via our Facebook page, so do head on over to social media. A big question today.
Asha, this is a big one. And I mean, for me, there's so many angles and discussions about this. I mean, we've seen on social media, Zoe and I have been chatting about this morning, but for me, I've got to ask the biggest question of it all, and that's got to be trust. I mean, why is it so important in a relationship? I mean, we could speak about it for days, but from the expert, what is your reasoning behind that being such an important thing for a healthy relationship?
It lays the complete foundation for a relationship. It makes someone feel secure, safe, a sense of belonging. You actually feel grounded and rooted in yourself, as well as in the world in general, because trust is not only within a relationship, but generally how we feel in relation to every aspect in our life. And when that is shattered, we can start feeling completely out of sync with ourselves.
And I know trust is such a delicate thing because it can easily be broken.
Yes.
Why is it such a traumatic experience for someone to go through?
It's traumatic because it's a violation of one's complete sense of that safety in one's self and in the world. And it's traumatic because, you know, trust doesn't just happen when we are cheated on. It actually goes back to childhood days when we've experienced a betrayal, because betrayal is actually, there's different forms of betrayal. We have betrayal in a sense of being neglected or being abused or being treated badly, and then ultimately the cheating happens and that becomes the big betrayal. But there's actually been a lot of other betrayals that have broken down that trust way before the actual event of, let's call it, the cheating.
I mean, it doesn't necessarily need to be that physical event, so to speak. When you're speaking about emotional cheating as well, which I'm sure we'll get to later. But then the question I would have is, when we're talking about our partner, if I'm the one that's cheated, what am I putting my partner through? Because in that moment, being the person that's creating that transgression or whatever it might be, I might be caught up in my own box. What am I maybe not seeing when it comes to the damage and the effect I'm putting on my partner, both physically and mentally as well? Because those are two different aspects which are dramatically being affected here.
Yes.
I mean, what would that be to give me, someone that was in the box, better like insight into that? What am I actually doing to them by cheating?
You are hurting them on a big level. It's a huge betrayal, but it's quite a dual perspective, because on the one hand you've got the betrayal and the hurt, and on the other hand there's also the sense of longing and desire in the person that has betrayed. So it's about looking at yourself and say, what was it for me? What did it mean to the person that I betrayed? But what did it also mean for myself? So it's a dual perspective, and it has to be viewed in both ways. Because it can make someone completely lose their overall sense of well-being. It's an inflammatory process in the state of our mind and our heart and our bodies. Our bodies feel uncomfortable. We actually feel so uncomfortable in our whole sense of being when we are betrayed.
Just to maybe add on to that, is it the norm to feel unworthy in that moment? Because you had a commitment, and in that relationship, you thought you had, or you thought you ticked the boxes, metaphorically speaking,
yes.
And now you feel like you've just turned against that. Is it the norm for me to feel that, like physical, like hurt, like it's a pain?
Oh, yes. You will feel unworthy, but you'll also feel insecure. You'll feel anxious. You'll feel troubled. You'll be using a lot of energy to overthink scenarios. So you become quite involved in your head. You become cynical and distrusting of the world. So you are in this debate versus trust versus mistrust. And the only virtue there is to have a sense of hope.
Yeah, and it's not easy. I mean, you know, the person being cheated on, they carry that with them, that mistrust that you mentioned. Now, for someone that is watching and they've had their trust broken, of course, we want to see, is there a way for us to repair that? Asha, I feel like, you know, when we come back, we'll be able to unpack that a little bit more, because we asked on social media for our listeners, our viewers, to share if they've had their trust broken, and all the comments came back and said, you know what, they will forgive, but they won't stay.
Yes.
And that was very interesting. So we will unpack what to do if the trust is broken, how can we repair it. But if you would love to join in on the conversation, would you forgive your partner if they cheated on you? Asha Dullabh is not going anywhere today. She's here to help us discuss this topic. And of course, if you have a comment or a question, you can leave it on the Expresso Facebook page.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
You're still live, of course. It's S3 and it's your Feel Good Expresso show. And we're still catching up with our resident specialist, it's Asha Dullabh. And it's Monday, talking about relationships. And today we were asking the question, the big question about, would you forgive your partner if they cheated on you? Now we're back with our clinical psychologist, Asha Dullabh, to unpack this topic some more and weigh in on the conversation and questions and the comments and everything that's coming through on this hot topic that we have right here this morning.
It is a hot topic because it happens time and time again. And you know what, before we left and ended off our last conversation, I wanted to know from you, Asha, you know, for someone that had been cheated on, now what? Where do you start picking up the pieces to make that decision? Do I stay with this partner? Is it a deal breaker, or do we work through it?
So, you know, the Japanese have this term, it's a crisis. You know, you find yourself in a crisis when you've been cheated on, but the crisis in Japanese means both danger and opportunity. So it's really, it's a make or break, but with the individual that has been betrayed, they need to really ask themselves, what is it that they really want? Because it's a choice for them to make and say, well, can I actually continue and work on this relationship? Or is it for me a complete non-negotiable? Very often these things are not spoken about in the initial stages of relationships. We engage in a marriage or relationship and we're looking at the assets and the finances, but we don't speak about what is really non-negotiable in this relationship for me. And if we had more conversations like those, I think that when that happens, it's very clear.
A very real conversation to have in a relationship, because you might not like the answer here.
Exactly.
But another answer, which I think is one that we might potentially want to hear, is when we ask the question of why. Because, I mean, I'm sure whenever that does happen, apart from the anger and the hurt and the pain, there's the question of, like, why? Our relationship's good. We go out every Monday. We do these routine things. Why did you cheat on me? Like, I don't get it. What is the reasoning behind going through the act of actually doing that thing that we're talking about, like crossing that line? What is the reason and rationality?
All right, so that's a very short question with a very long answer.
With many answers, I could imagine. Yeah.
But why? I think that there are various reasons why. I think that we as human beings, we are seeking novelty. Novelty is something that's very important in a relationship. So we need to invest in new experiences, and very often as human beings we also like this familiarity, a sense of comfort. So we go into this stage of mundanity. We actually even sometimes take our partners for granted. I think that we treat strangers far better than the way we treat our partners. The amount of attention that a relationship requires is huge. It's like, and we are juggling balls all the time, and in order to juggle balls, we need to have skill and attention, and this is exactly what a relationship needs. And I'm not sure whether we are, as human beings, giving our relationships the attention that it needs and the appreciation for our partners. But it can happen for various reasons. It also really goes back to our attitude towards relationships, because it's our attitude that then will depict our behavior in relationships. So what is the attitude of someone that is betraying or has the sense of, the cheater?
Very interesting. And you know what? Speaking of the cheating, it's never nice being cheated on. And it filters into not just your romantic relationships, but you become mistrustful. So how the person being cheated on, how can they start regaining trust in humanity?
I think that, in humanity, we need to also just have faith in humanity. We come into this world as good people. And I think that we have to see each other as good individuals, but there may come a stage where things come up and the blend changes, and we want to quickly label someone as, or judge someone as the bad person and sort of reduce them to the totality of being the cheater. But generally they are in a relationship, they are good parents, or they are good with the business in the families, or so. But we're quick to judge. So I think that we need to just take a step back first, and to look at ourselves and look at our partners without jumping into conclusions too quickly. So there's lots that one can do. I think it's important that we need to acknowledge and take responsibility for our actions. Trust and forgiving goes hand in hand with having a sense of remorse. There has to be remorse in order for trust to be regained, or for relationship to go through a healing process. There has to be some sense of responsibility. And also partners need to openly communicate. Like I said earlier on, it can be an opportunity for enormous growth and involvement in a relationship if it's just channeled correctly.
Yeah, and I think what you're speaking about, I think highlights such a pertinent topic when it comes to relationships, and that's, of course, communication. So ideally, if you had that good communication, you'd be able to highlight this issue before it got to the point where we crossed the line, and hopefully then we can address it and spice up that vibe. But Asha, thank you so much. Obviously, we're heading to the kitchen right now to do something special with our bellies, and we will be catching up a little bit more with our viewers and their concerns on cheating in a relationship. But before we do, let's go fill those bellies.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Well, welcome back. You are just in time as we're about to wrap up our relationship topic for this morning. It's Monday and we're talking relationships, and the question we've been asking is, would you forgive your partner if they cheated on you? Well, clinical psychologist Asha Dullabh, she's here with us as we've unpacked this topic, and we love hearing your comments and questions from our social media pages. That's Facebook. And Asha, before we get into some of the comments that have come through, we've unpacked the cheating aspect quite a bit, how to regain trust, what happens to the person being cheated on. But what in the scenario where the partner is a serial cheater? It happens more than once.
So here we're looking at, let's call it the cheater psyche. And it's an attitude that they have. So we need to look at the attitude of that serial cheater. And what are these scripts? The more I cheat, the better I feel about myself. This is who I am, so you can't change me. This is all I know. So what is the script that's playing out? Because we first need to address the attitude rather than the behavior. So once that's addressed, then the behavior. But it's definitely a choice that is being made, and one needs to look at that choice, because choices have consequences.
I like that. Going back to the source. Now, of course, the source of our questions has a source of answers too, and Mzansi has come through with some beautiful comments when it comes to social media, and this morning we're looking at a few of them. I see the first one says, yes, time heals everything. Real forgiveness takes time, respect, and love, which I definitely do agree with. Time, although it does seem in the moment that it can be almost impossible, I think you would agree that it can be the perfect opportunity to mend what has been broken.
Well, you know what? I think naturally we have our whole sense of being, it's natural to heal. If we just think of a wound, if we leave it alone and allow it to heal, it will heal. But if we're going to constantly interfere with the wound, it's going to have repercussions and not heal. And I think that extends to the way we look at how we heal and process a betrayal. And I think that it's just natural to our human existence elicits the natural response to heal, and we need to trust that. If we keep on going back into the energy of regurgitation and in the past, we're going to stay stuck in that. It's actually going to imprison ourselves. And we're disappointing ourselves. We hold resentment that will make us feel ill. It'll make us feel very unwell, both physically and emotionally and
Slow poison
psychologically.
just festering within you.
Yes,
You need to let it go.
absolutely.
So we have another social media comment. I can't read that far.
So it looks like Reika is saying, good morning. It depends on what the person did, and we can forgive, but that doesn't mean that we need to accept our partner back into our lives. And that seems to be quite a common comment when it comes to South Africa, and Zoe mentioned that earlier. We don't forget, and we're not just gonna, okay, that's fine, you've admitted it, let's move on and carry on where we are. And I like that. I think that shows a little bit of awareness, so to speak, right?
Absolutely. Awareness, there's boundaries. We're also setting out a clear message as to what is what I feel comfortable with. If you stay in a relationship and there's constantly cheating, the serial cheater, what message are we giving to our partner? It's okay that I can be treated this way, but if you can forgive and move on and let go, that will be the first choice.
Easier said than done, though.
I know. I feel like those are always the scenarios where it's easier said than done. So we have another one coming through from Onwele.
Elle is saying, I would definitely forgive, but if the person breaks my trust in a manner that breaks me as a person via cheating, abuse, or manipulation, I would forgive and leave him and pray and bless him from afar so that I can live a beautiful, healthy, and long life. And I support that. I'm all for this. I like the independence that Mzansi is coming through this morning, which is something I definitely implore. I don't know about you being the specialist, what your opinion is on that.
Let's bless the betrayer.
Bless them and let them move on with their lives.
You made your choice, I respect it, but that's your choice. You do your thing. That's very cool. And, last one coming through here. It looks like, I think the name is Rutametsi, I've got a very far screening that I'm looking at, but it says, forgiving, yes, staying with them, no. So I think that definitely echoes a lot of what we are feeling on the couch here. But you, Mzansi, you obviously have your own choice too when it comes to your relationship, when it comes to what you think is worth that investment. And I think that's really what it comes to at the end of the day. Like, what do you want?
Yes, I think it's an important question, what do I want? Because at the end of the day, we are all doing what we want to do. And we want to feel free in doing it. So regardless, we are still going to continue to do what we want. And we just need to be reminded that everything that we do has a consequence.
There we go. Well, Asha, thank you so much for joining us this morning. You are still doing consultations, right?
Yes,
you can
I am.
email info@ashadullabh.com.
That's right.
And that is how you can get a hold of Asha. Of course, we love talking relationships, especially on the Monday. It just sets the tone for the rest of the week. And hopefully you got some valuable information from this discussion. The conversation will continue online. So if you do have a comment or a question, you can always leave it on our social media pages.